Can you imagine basically operating a tank in a farm field when it's saturated with fall weather? You don't move. So now that things are freezing solid, we're probably going to see a little bit of movement. And now it's kind of a war of logistics. What we've got here in the south, that's the Kerch Strait Bridge. You'll notice the dotted line. Kerch is the only rail connection between Russia proper and the southern front. And a few weeks ago, somebody blows it up, which means that anything that the Russians want to bring into the front now has to be moved by truck. Now, you guys remember those javelins from earlier in the war? For the most part, the Ukrainians were not targeting tanks or artillery. They were targeting military tactical support trucks, of which the Russians started the war with about 3,000. They're now down to under 800. So they've literally been going town by town in the Russian Federation and confiscating city buses and literally Scooby-Doo vans to move artillery shells around the front. I mean, when a Scooby-Doo van loaded down with artillery shells like hits a bump, there's a show. But that.
All right. Is this that hyperbole that I was talking about? I mean, it's now obviously a Scooby-Doo van is not the ideal, and we all know what he means, and he's being cute and clever, but he's I don't think he's way off in terms of that. But how unstable is transferring artillery shells in a 60s style like van? How dangerous is that?
It's not that dangerous. You have to understand, artillery shells are shipped in separate components. So you have the fusing mechanism with the detonator, and then you have the explosive charge in the warhead. If you don't have those two mated up, it's not going to go boom.
Yeah, but I mean, you're just slashing through the whole transporting things by mystery machine. It's a mystery if it'll make it there or not.
Well, very good point. But that's the thing that bothered me about this particular section of his presentation, is he just doesn't even mention the fact to keep the war going, the Russians have had to strip all the trucks, the buses, the vans out of their civilian side to keep the army moving. Can you imagine the impact that is having on their industry, on their economy?
Yeah, and it's not just that Ukraine's destroyed all of them. I mean, a good chunk of them just broke down and they can't fix them.
Yep. And that's not being talked about. And it's like, okay, so you managed to take Bakhmut, what is it? It's literally a salt mine. Why does anybody care? Because you've literally destroyed your entire industry to achieve that goal, and it's going to take years, if not decades, to recover from that.
It is, and the Scooby-Doo van, when it bumps, you see a show, is a great line. I love rhetoric. I love the idea of, oh, Scooby, we don't have a Scooby snack, but here's some primer. Would you like to play with that? I mean, I think it's hilarious. It lends itself to some great imagery, and it's great rhetoric. And rhetoric is part of how you sell ideas. I wish it wasn't. We've talked about this. We sometimes we have on people on In Time who we know are for a particular direction or particular point of view, but they have to do that because that's how they get support, and that's how rhetoric is always a part of every single discussion. As a teacher, that's one of the first things you learn. Good teachers learn rhetoric and have rhetorical skills. The problem is he needs to be taken seriously, incredibly, about what he's talking about, assuming his goal is to be well understood and to inform people, which he purports it to be, and presumably it is. When you use even when it hits a thing, there's a show, it's like, okay, it's not that dangerous. And again, he's painting the Russians out to be far more incompetent than they are. You've got enough with they're actually having to steal these things and what they're stripping from their strategic bombers, stripping from their military, stripping from their civilians in order to get this thing running. You've got enough there. Sitting there and saying that they're complete idiotic morons because of the dangers of this kind of thing, and that, oh my God, they'll be lucky if they get half of those artillery shells up to the front, and that's when they remember the water. I think that's a huge disservice to trying to understand what's going on and to understand the seriousness that the Russians you shouldn't underestimate it. They're not fighting the way we'd expect or would hope, but they are not a small country, and they are a country willing to keep throwing lives at this. It is not as simple as he's making it sound.
it's throwing the economy at it as well, because again, to them, this is, at least for Putin and his inner circle, this is an existential battle, because if they don't win, they're going to be removed with great prejudice.
We're missing a golden opportunity to sell him maybe some rhetoric. We can make a little money for the channel. You know, hey, shipping all these things in the mystery van. It's a mystery as to whether it'll make it or not.
I think that's great.
I like that line.
We'll have our guys call his guys, and we'll be like, okay, dude, we got some one-liners for you here. We know you like them. You've had a few decent ones. You know what? You've done a decent job. Now let the pros take over. Here's how you sell. All right, here's some good lines. All right,